What is up, people? Half Slab Bacon back with the final episode, guys, of Zombie Apocalypse, version 2.0, of course. I'm gonna miss this map, guys. It's a little bittersweet. It is a little bittersweet. It is. We've done all the things, and as promised, I figured we'd take a tour down memory lane. So as you can see, I'm standing on the chest on the big huge giant tower that we raided. Still got a bunch of blocks in my inventory, not that they matter, but there it is, guys. There is our spawn point. There is our spawn point. We can see the houses we spawned by. Our horse is still there. Lucky's chilling out inside. It's a beautiful day out. Sunny, clear skies. So as we know, you spawn in this house, and we came out and started discovering the world. Realized pretty quick that there was lots of spawners around. I still really appreciate the detail using all the older blocks because this is such an old map. So much work went into it. I was so impressed, this starting area, how every little house by spawn was just that little bit different. And our first trip out to the stores that we saw in the distance, the food store, the redstone that went into the lighting in here, the general store. Oh, so beautiful, guys. So beautiful. And this house, I think, is still one of my favorites, even though we didn't find it super right away. This really was one of my favorite houses. Just kind of like the first mansion we found in the area with all the... Well, we're inside a bunch of redstone. We went underneath the house. But yeah, just the first big house we found being all dark and going and finding the separate rooms and the home theater TV, and I forget what was back here, just a little book area, and then venturing up these stairs and finding all the separate rooms, all the little details that went into it. The minecart track up here was so satisfying. It really, really was. And of course, who can forget our first taste of how hostile the map was, venturing out to these towers here. Now, I will say they were super exciting, guys. They really, really were. But I have to be honest, towards the end of the gameplay, this kind of thing was getting a little repetitive for me. If the map was a little more difficult, that wouldn't be so bad, but once you had found some basic gear, going in and finding these chests with just basic loot in them really wasn't that big a deal. I mean, how many potions do we have that I never used? You know what I mean? So I guess maybe if I were to say anything, some slight changes to the tall buildings to make them more challenging and make the rewards a little bit higher would have been more backstory in each one, more mobs in each one would have been better. But just the details, like the prison here, it really did kind of keep the game flowing, because yes, we found some of the skyscrapers were hugely repetitive, but then we had ones like this where they bridged across, and those little stores here or there, this kind of community market here with, I'm still not even sure what this was supposed to be. Originally, I mean, before the apocalypse, but ended up being a safe haven. These kind of unique builds that were spread out throughout the map and are so beautifully done is really, I think, what kept it interesting, not only for me, but for you guys as well. because they're meticulous, they're beautifully done, and you never knew. You never knew what you were going to find. I think this house here, which we also kind of found earlier game, was one of my other favorite ones. And by the way, guys, that's why we always had so much trouble here. I think I pointed out one on camera, and there goes my phone. Of course, I forgot to put it on silent. Sorry, guys. I'm not going to stop now, though, but this was definitely probably one of my other favorite houses. It was huge. It was interesting. It was kind of the first safe haven outside of the wall we found, but those spawners were set in a place that it didn't matter how well you lit it up, you were still going to get spawns inside here, making it still dangerous. Just beautifully done, you know? Like nice kitchens, decorative fireplaces. You know, obviously, because this is a wealthy man's house, that's supposed to be a massive big screen TV. You know, little details like the swimming pool out in the back with the lounge chairs really did kind of seal it for me. It kept it exciting. Again, these rooms, super cool addition. It would have been nice to get more variation in here, though, in terms of stuff and backstory. I would say that. But the builds like this, like, look at this, guys. Look at that. As a matter of fact, I think that's going to be our screenshot. I think. Yeah. It's beautiful, man. It's a beautiful, beautiful map. I mean, it's easy to criticize after you've played a map, but it's a beautiful, maybe we'll take one here too. Beautiful map. In this potion room, which I think we came back here twice before we figured out everything that was going on in here, was very impressive, very cool. The little traps to torture zombies and all that, the potion brewing. And that was one thing he did well, was in some cases, once you got out into these areas, you just never knew what you were going to find. And that really did keep me going. I mean, all these houses now, the downside to these were a lot of them contained very little in terms of backstory or loot. But one thing I was really happy with was, especially once we got back down here towards the end, this was probably one of the most difficult areas of the map in terms of mob spawning, with the amount of spawners he had. So it was very, very, very thrilling. Like, if I remember correctly, I had to lock myself in. Yeah, there it is, right there. I had to lock myself in one of these houses. The boarded up one. Is this? Okay, yeah, no, there's the door out to the top and the lookout towers. I had to lock myself in, and there were still zombies getting in through those lookout towers. If more of the map would have been that way, the backstory could have been skipped a little bit, and the loot would have been more rewarding because you would have gone through more of it. This was very, very cool. And I really wish this map had gotten finished, because we got that book about the bomb and having to grab all the what do you call it? The stuff and things. The blue stuff. You know what I mean. Yeah, the blue stuff. And having to come here to dig for it was really kind of a rewarding task. The downside is that backstory didn't continue, right? There was no place to actually activate the bomb and cure the zombie apocalypse. But again, these houses were beautifully done. Nice details. Overall, I would say decent amount of loot. It's just in most of the map, it wasn't challenging enough to actually need all that loot. I suppose if you were to play a multiplayer, it would have been a little bit different, because you would have more people setting off more spawns. But for single, most of these just didn't cut it in terms of difficulty. I mean, once you had the iron gear, which, as we can see, the iron's everywhere, you could pretty much handle the map without death, as long as you weren't stupid about it. I, again, loved, as we branched out into the country, all these random builds that just changed up over and over. But again, this loot that was completely worthless, and when you did get good loot, the challenge wasn't there for you to actually need it. But just these random builds that were like this, with different rooms, really did it just, the world takes a life of its own with all these. It really does. I'm so impressed by it. I love it, guys. Now, another part I was super sad about with the backstory was this hospital never getting completed. And we covered that. I believe I showed you last episode how you can tell when you look in here how the builder was intending to have every floor lit, and probably some more loot throughout all of them. They would have been much more interesting if there was even one book at the very, very top with a solid part of the backstory and all the floors unlit, but massive mob spawners throughout it. And I think that was my biggest complaint with the tall buildings, was there were never any spawners in them. So they weren't, in a lot of cases, they were repeats in design and not containing any backstory that was really interesting, and also containing loot that was useless or you didn't really need. And then, to make matters worse, they were safe havens. There were no mob spawners in them. So you wanted to take on the tall buildings, but I personally felt they weren't very exciting. More of this though, like every area done like this was just so well done. I mean, this is the stuff that, even when there was no loot in these kinds of areas, I was just ecstatic to explore them, because each build down on the ground was very unique. Except for that one area, but it had the difficulty to offset it. But again, loot like this, like, just kind of killed it in some ways, you know? You know what I'm saying? However, I thoroughly enjoyed playing the map. This isn't a criticism to say, like, it was a bad map. I'm not criticizing it to say it was a bad map. I'm constructive here. What he could have done to improve it, and if he ever finishes the map up, I would hope to see some of those changes come to fruition. But the details like this, guys, all those little minor improvements that could be made aside, the details like stuff like this, that's just rewarding to climb in light. Even if you don't get anything, even if it's not necessary, more of this would have been great too. There was a good amount, but more of the little places like this, where we found backstory off the beaten path, like, here's, I think, yeah, Tomorrow's Hope. Oh, we can't take it. Well, suck it, stupid game. Give us the book. These little details. My hope of existence, blah, blah, blah. Escape of never-ending peace held within a bottle. Like, here, have some suicide juice. And I don't even remember what this one said. It's not a safe place. Like, this was fun stuff, man. This was fun stuff. Finding those little details. I think that was my favorite part of the map, guys, was getting outside of the cities into this country where you found a lot of those details and just going through these unique builds. It was really, really, really cool. This over here was freaking amazing. It was late game when we finally made our way out here, but I was ecstatic to find this area. I really was. Again, unfortunately, the rewards like iron and some random books, like, yeah, we got that already, buddy. You know what I mean? An enchanting table. Okay, well, we got that already, buddy. Like a million times. You know? That was kind of the disappointing part. However, the difficulty was good in here. I remember us having to lock ourselves up for a while. This was really, really cool. I really liked this. Again, it could have done something other than lead into the sewer systems, methinks, or have some more details in it, but very cool build. Those towers there, like, yeah, getting stuck up there was fun. Almost losing my stuff. This farm back here, so beautiful, guys. I loved this. Loved this. I think we even came back twice because we weren't able to find, and it'll be totally obvious if we look now. Yeah, that's where the chest was. Right? Yeah, that's where the chest was. These little details were just extra. Oh, there's a mob spawner there. No wonder we had so much trouble checking at night. But these little details are really what kept this map alive for me, you know? These little pens for the horses. Stuff like this was cool. If we had come this way and we had needed a leash or a saddle, that would have been a super awesome find. But we found it after, and it still didn't change the awesomeness of this, just because of the detail, the beautiful building. If I remember correctly, we found some backstory back here. Yeah, this is where we figured out about that chest in the field. Like, just a beautifully designed map. I mean, look at that. It's very, very simple, but when you're playing in a survival map, a simple house like this, with the right materials and a little bit of detail inside like this, just adds so much fluidity and detail to the map. You know, having the name dog out here, Sparky, and adding him into the story was really, those are my favorite parts of this map. By far, guys. I loved it. It was great. It really, really, really was. I hope that some of the maps we do in the near future are going to be just as exciting as this. You know, having a gas station out in the country by the hospital, having random ambulances and buses, a broken bridge, these kind of details. You know, going as far as to have a bit of a homeless area underneath the bridge. Because this is true. I mean, in modern North America, in large metropolises, this is a thing, people. Unfortunately, there's many homeless people that live in areas like this. I never even noticed before that you could see the spawners from under here. Haha, that was awesome. And the second city. Guys, again, the food house, the difficulty was increased in this one. That I was a little happier about. The random details. Again, too many of these identical on every floor without the real reward. Mainly because when they did offer reward, it just wasn't needed. If the difficulty was harder, like Super Hostile series harder, then getting those rare bits of food or zombie flesh would have mattered, but not frickin' bowls. And, well, super hostile would have made the leather worth it. But again, there's so much iron scattered everywhere that you would just never need the iron gear anyways. But little details like this beautifully designed bank where we were able to find a bunch of gold, even though we didn't need it. These details were just amazing, guys. You know, going into this was a mini mart, and there were a couple like that, but these townhouses, which is where we seem to find a whole bunch of backstory, and the cure led to a specific address, and these were the only ones on the maps that had the address, but again, we didn't find anything. And that was kind of a disappointment to me, you know. And in all fairness, it still says on the page, and I knew this going into it, that the map was continually being updated. The misleading part was that it said 100% complete, and clearly it wasn't. If the story portion of the map isn't complete, then it's not complete. But some of these buildings, I went too far, were just like, stuff like this is wonderful. Unfortunately, again, when you get into this, areas where I cut, because every single one's the same, and you remember, every single chest had the same amount of loot. Notice the seeds are in the same spots. That did kind of wreck the fluidity. And it's a minor complaint, but it's one that if I wasn't doing it for YouTube, I don't even think the completionist would have kicked in and I would have done every tower. I would have just been like, they're all the same, forget it. And just gone to the interesting builds like this one. I mean, this was super cool. The museum. Like, this is the stuff, guys. This is it. This is what made this map so amazeballs, you know, having a check-in counter where you have to give your tickets and just different colored glass roofs. All these things were so beautiful. I really like this kind of luxury condo, even though a lot of the condo layouts were identical, which makes sense because in luxury condo buildings, that's kind of how it is. You have, you know, penthouses that vary, but for the most part, the other ones are based on a standard floor layout, copied on top of each other. It was beautiful. Like, I love this stuff, guys. Even just little details like that, even though the rooms themselves are very much the same, the couches are different, that kind of thing is enough to really keep it going. I loved it. It was phenomenal. And when these big buildings did come into play where they changed things up, oh, they were awesome. This one still confuses me. And I wonder if the map maker had planned on adding more floors here eventually or not. But you can see how we broke in from over here because there was no direct access to get in here. And then there was this huge, gorgeous area. Like, some of the stuff like that, you can clearly tell he was working towards future plans in progress, and they just never happened. But stuff like this, the tanks and the helicopters that were shot down and abandoned, again with the jail cells, really did add a lot to make the map come alive. I forget what this was. An observatory. Yeah, just a random, you would find it in a city. No real purpose in the map per se, other than being a city monument. I still wonder where that minecart is. Why? It's not updating anything. It's just making noise. Okay. Not sure I get that one other than just to mess with you. But you know, the underground bridges and stuff. Oh, awesome details. Again, stuff like finding cathedrals and being able to find enchanting books in them. Like, look at that. That looks freaking beautiful. Simple build, but added so much life to the map. Again, with the helicopters. Guys, it really is one of the most impressive in terms of build style maps. I've definitely played others with better, more complete storylines, more finished maps, but in terms of originality and life inside of a map, this one was awesome. I would have absolutely loved to have seen what would have come with this ship if it was completed a little bit more. It was a little bit disappointing that there was not much inside of any of these spaces. There were, goodies few and far between, but this would have been a potential to do like a huge dungeon. And that's what I mean when I say super hostile hard, is sometimes, it was a little too easy. And that's what made the chesticles kind of like, what do I want those for? Meaningless. You know what I mean? There's trees everywhere. What do I need a chest full of saplings for? But the build style, wow. Just seriously impressive building. Despite some of the lack of fluidity in the storyline because the map wasn't fully completed, and despite how sometimes it was a little too easy and the rewards were pointless, like, again, wrong button, screenshot, because why not? Like, just so beautiful, guys. Definitely a gifted builder. It's sad to see that he never took it to true completion. Who knows? He worked on this for years and years and years. Maybe we'll see him come back. But the crane to drop the crates on the boat, the bridge off, there was clearly little details like this, even though technically that's world border that he drew. Little details like having our what do you call them, sewers connect all the way out to this. Just freaking awesome, man. Awesome detail. The harbor out here where you can see they had rebuilt it and caged it off to deal with the apocalypse. The boat off to the side to save people and get them out of the area. Just beautiful, beautiful work. The bridge that obviously takes cues from like a lot of North American bridges, such as the Golden Gate. Just awe-inspiring. And this over here, guys, I think this really is probably my favorite part of the map. The most unfinished part of the map, yes, but my favorite part of the map, and I can tell you why. Because once it got to this point, and most of this is unlit, so we don't get to see much, but you can clearly see how the map maker had come into his own after working years on this map in terms of build style and started messing around with different materials and pushing the envelope a little bit more. Now, more materials were available, granted, but you can clearly see that his building experience was vastly different, that his style had been fine-tuned, that he had really honed his stuff. Actually, I think this is the one I stole the lapis from, isn't it? I got the diamond blocks out of there. Okay, so this wasn't the one with all the lapis. One of them had a crap ton of lapis, which again broke the fluidity of the story, but it just didn't matter. I mean, this massive thing. If we had been, do I have a? I don't. If I had a flint and steel on me, I'd light it right now. Like, just, I really wish someday, I hope someday he comes back and does another update, because look at the change in building style, in the structures, how he's still just doing basic stack design, but using more colors, changing his style up so they have a more modern feel. This really, really was. I was so amazed when we got over here. I almost cried when I realized there was nothing on any of the floors to explore. Because clearly, I mean, you look at that building and then you look at this one. Clearly, he was just getting started over here, right? And that's what broke my heart, was that one is so impressive, so awe-inspiring. This one, which gets like no light. So let's go 0. Actually, let's just go 1. So we can just run around and yeah, like the waterfalls right in the building for a more modern feel. The guest areas with the couches. This is the one that had all the randomness of chests. And I believe this is the one we got all the lapis from, if I remember correctly. Like, very, very impressive, guys. Very, very impressive. Having these, like, under building drive-through areas, so indicative of truly modern buildings. Oh, if we had been able to play several episodes over here, fit into the story, I would have been so happy. Again, though, with stuff like this, the building's phenomenal, but the difficulty just wasn't hard enough to make resources like that gold so readily available. If it was Super Hostile Series hard and I was dying every 5 seconds, I would need to have that much gold and that much iron everywhere. But when I can pretty much run around in iron gear without dying, having that much available just makes an easy map even easier than it already is. However, you know, these little details really are impressive. Stairway here, separate access there. Like, I don't believe I showed you guys very much of this building, but I did fly through it myself because I really, really wanted to see it. Like, look, that's a freaking impressive build, peeps. I don't care what anybody says. However, completely unfinished. I think we get up a few floors and it changes to just random lights and stuff. Yeah, there we go. But just beautiful design, clearly. I mean, awe-inspiring. If there was more backstory, more stuff to find, this would have been definitely my favorite section of the map. And you can see how he took the roads to the end. Like, you can see he planned on, you know, copying another chunk of land here with more city. It looks like when I look at this area, that's how he was generating the map, is he was just erasing chunks and, you know, erasing all blocks, maybe leaving water and air, and then he was probably copying this kind of stuff out of a creative world. Just with the copy commands, moving it over. MC edit, who knows? But how it all came together, I'm so happy, guys. I'm so happy to have gotten to share this map with you. I really am. But I'm so sad it's done, guys. It's terrible. It's terrible. It just came to an abrupt stop. We didn't get to win anything because there was no completing the map. There was no monument, CTM stuff. But like, this is... I mean, you can tell years of work went into it. I didn't even notice that but when we were playing, but look at those carpets are actually supposed to be skid marks from the truck sliding. That is awesome. Again, when we found the signs here and it moves off, you can tell he just planned on continually expanding the world and adding more and more cities. And it would have been a freaking awesome thing if it was much bigger to see it. And I think that's one of the main reasons I have the critiques, the few critiques of the map I do, guys, is because it was so impressive that before I knew those little imperfections were there. Don't get me wrong, every map has their imperfections. But before I knew they were there, I wanted this to go on forever. I really did. I really, really did. Let's just, and I'm glad we got to share it, guys. It really was a ton of fun. And if he does update the map, I'll keep an eye on it. I would love to see it in a future episode or a future series where we revisit the map and maybe kind of start over. Maybe like cheat in some armor and stuff. Not even cheat it in. Just skip the areas, grab basic gear, skip the areas we've done before and go off to the new sections. I think that would be my strategy. I would really love it, guys, because this map is near and dear to my heart. I'm glad you guys all enjoyed it. I loved it, and I only hope the next map is as satisfying. So as always, guys, smash that like if you enjoyed the episode to help others like yourself who might enjoy the content find the channel. And if you're new and you haven't already, hit that subscribe for more videos, peeps. Thanks for joining me on the epic adventure of Zombie Apocalypse. We'll see you in the next map. Thanks for watching. Bye.